So now we look at pivot tables, and the first thing to know about pivot tables, and maybe the most important thing of all, is they rock. They let you analyze tons of data. Really doesn't matter how many rows it is, whether you're analyzing 10 rows of data or 10,000 rows of data, quickly, easily, fewer chances to make mistakes and get numbers wrong. It's very hard to do that in a pivot table, and best of all, no functions. So let's see what we got here. What we've got in the Excel spreadsheet that's used as the example is a list of sales orders that's about 1,000 rows long. Each row in the spreadsheet or in the sales orders worksheet represents one sale of widgets to a customer. And the columns are the facts about each sale. So this sale here was a small size widget to Madison Group. The sales rep was Arthur Moore. Here was the widget number. The color was white, the date of the sale, quantity, and the total sale. So every column is facts. Now, a 1,000-row table like this is a lot of data, and it's very hard to answer questions like, what was the total of all sales? How much did we sell to each customer? That's a very hard question. You'd have to be writing a sum if, or maybe a bunch of them, to make that work. How much did we sell by month? That's a hard question to answer. What colors? All those are difficult questions to answer with the tools that we have so far. But with the introduction of pivot tables, it becomes really easy. So let's start out by inserting a simple pivot table in it. And all I'm going to do is click anywhere inside this table of data. Then on the Insert menu, I'll select Pivot Table. And up pops this dialog box. It's pre-selected the range from A down to H1001. And where do you want to put this pivot table? Well, in the examples we're going to do in this class, we're going to put them into a new worksheet, although you can put them into an existing worksheet if you want, but let's keep it simple. So I'm going to click on OK, and what will happen is it will add a new worksheet into the workbook. I'm just going to slide it over to here, and we get this thing here, this label or box sitting over here that says this worksheet is meant to do a pivot table. Over here on the right, we had the pivot table fields, and up here on top, we got an Analyze tab and a Design tab for pivot table tools. This thing over here is the field list, and if it doesn't appear, you can turn it on and off up here with that button. Or if you click outside of a pivot table or outside of this box, it disappears automatically. So to bring it back, just click inside this box, and out comes the field list. Now, here we have a list of the columns or fields that were in the table that we started with, and then down here are 4 boxes in 4 quadrants. The total, you may remember, was the total amount of the sale. So if we want to ask the question, what was the total of all 1,000 sales, all we have to do is take total, drag it, and drop it down here in the values quadrant, and we will get the grand total here. Now I'm going to make it money right off the bat. So we had $5,069,874 in the entire table. That's basically a sum function across the whole thing, except that all that we had to do was drag and drop. Now, if we want to combine the fact of the amount of the sale with some other properties that are other columns that were about a part of it, then we could, for example, take the customer field here and drop it down in the rows section. And that will give us all the customers that were in the table anywhere and how much their sale was. So this is the sum for each one of these customers. Paoli Pipelines bought $326,327 worth of stuff. Now when I drop the customers down here in the rows, that means each customer gets a row of its own. It's a little tricky because these are the labels on the rows, but even though we dropped customer in rows, it wound up in a column, but each one gets its own row. Let's take the size property over here. That was medium, small. There's probably some larges in here someplace there are. Let's take the size property and drop it in columns. Now what happens is we have a two-dimensional table with customers down the left and size across the way. And we get a grand total across each row. So all Atlantic, bought 14,000 in large, 135,000 in medium, 120. Grand total of $270,000. Down the column, this is, we sold $179,000 worth of large, $2,600,000 in medium, and $2,200,000 in small. So, here was the grand total we started with. One of the things you can do in processing these things is it's very easy to make changes. So, for example, suppose I wanted to take size out of here. I can just drag it off the box and let go, and size disappears. And I can replace that with color here in the columns. And let's click away from the, the pivot table field here. This panel is hiding some of the data. So I'm going to click outside the pivot table here, and you'll see the whole thing with the grand total down the left and a grand total across the bottom. So I'll click back in the table to make the field list pop back up. It's very quick and easy to answer a zillion questions about what's going on inside your data. Another way of looking at it, instead of having, let's get rid of color, so I'll drag that off here, and I'll put size back. Size is a good example to work with because there's only a few values. I'm going to shrink up the field labels here to make more room. So this arranges, and each cell is a combination of this customer and that size. So Ellison Actuators bought $192,000 worth of medium size. Let's take the size column, and instead of putting it in columns, let's drop it down underneath rows in customer. And when we do that, then we arrange under each customer the large, medium, and small, and we get the amount of the sales. So this is a different way with sort of subtotaling going on. This is the total sales for All Atlantic and for Barsfield's widgets and so on. Notice in boat line anchors there's no large. That's because they didn't buy any. Okay? When I had the size over here in columns, when boat line anchors didn't buy any large, it's just an empty cell here. We have to put something in because we got the large column. But when they're arranged as subtotals down here in the rows, if a customer didn't buy something, you don't get large, for example. So that's a way of doing it where you put size underneath customer. Which customer bought which sizes. So, you know, this is, we can swap them in the order and put the size on top and the customer within. So let's go look at that. I'm just going to take customer and drag it down underneath size. And that swaps them. So under large, we see all the customers and what they bought. So depending upon what you or the person you're creating the spreadsheet for wants to see, it's very easy to make these changes. It's amazing how quickly. I don't see pivot tables being used very much in my customers. So I think, you know, this is a skill that if you have it in your toolkit, you will amaze people. They think you'll be able to do magic. Now, a couple of things about this is they put something up here like row labels. So typically you would come up here and make this customer. And over here, these are all left aligned. So I'm going to select that and just come up and do a normal left alignment like that. And with numbers these big, typically pennies aren't, no one's interested in pennies, so we can get rid of those and declutter it a little bit. So they usually need a little bit of cleanup, but boy, not much. So that's the basic intro to pivot tables. Next we'll go on and look at filtering, which is a part of this quadrant here, and some other things that you can do in the pivot table.